Or live?
It has a.
Oh, okay, we're recording Zoom, but now we're on YouTube. Very good, thank you. Or live. Oh. We're on YouTube. Very good, thank you. It's delayed, it's delayed.
That's
Must
a
be
good trick
delayed.
there.
This happened at the other zoning board. Oh, no.
Testing one, two.
I would say that they turn the speakers like off in the room, but it will still record the noise, so it won't play backwards.
Okay, great.
That is
I don't hear it.
Oh, here I go.
good.
What's that?
The opening statement.
Oh,
Well, I'll just make it up. Come in. Read it in. Now.
we'll just wait, I think.
Said she was here. Try it again. Oh,
She's already texted you.
yeah, I'll count traffic off. They have 5 o'clock. 5 minutes.
That's why you gotta go down.
Right down East Bay, just. Right.
She's still. The back. I love it.
You know, patterns. He goes downhill.
We're just kind of going against traffic a little bit.
She's probably stuck at like Calhoun and King. Yeah, it's all up
Right,
there.
right.
There's one person who wants to turn left.
That's right.
Last one. Is that?
I think it's pretty good.
It's supposed to vote on meeting minutes. We're not. Because you can't validate.
So that's a good question. So one of the four of us wasn't here this month. So we'll vote on meeting minutes.
Yes, Kelvin, our attorney.
So I wasn't here last month. Can we still vote on the meeting minutes?
So we'll have to defer that.
I wasn't here, but you can't vote on it in the meeting.
You weren't here either,
But I mean, we don't have a quorum.
so we'll just defer that. But
See how fast this meeting's gonna go. We're ready for first.
Donna's there too.
Your daughter's so good. So good.
You can't.
She is a sophomore now at Clemson. Living downtown.
It took me 50 minutes to get across that right after I texted, sorry.
it's okay,
No problem.
it's all right.
We want you to
Okay.
see.
All right, all right, Mr.
Take your
Chair.
breath.
Exactly.
Wednesday, the 6th. All right, we'll get things started, y'all. This is the March 6th, 2024 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design. Present are Amanda Barton, Kelvin Yuji, Paula Summers, myself, Joel Adrian. Present from staff is Eric Schultz. These proceedings are being recorded. We ask that those who speak identify themselves for the record. We will conduct this meeting in usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The board reserves the right to ask questions of the staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested. Hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application. The open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, deny, defer, or defer the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals Site Design has the authority to do three things. One, hear appeals and decisions of the zoning administrator. Two, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. Three, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54.924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum are present and qualified to vote. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, there are extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. And B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance would not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or the public good. The character of the district not be harmed by the granting of the variance. So that said, we will go to the first item. Item A1 is the review of the minutes from the previous meeting, January 3rd, 2024. No. It's been February. Those were approved, sorry. February 7th, 2024 meeting minutes, but we do not have a quorum present to vote on that, so we're going to defer that. And we will go to item B1, which is 200, 216, and 220 Royal Palm Boulevard. The TMS number is 352-1000-004, which is zone DR2F. Request a variance from section 54.327 to allow the removal of 2 grand trees. Request a special exception from section 54.327 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree. And request a variance from section 54.347 to allow a reduced landscape buffer.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the application submitted by Klein Engineering. We're dealing with the Palms apartment complex, and it's viewed as one complex, but it sits on 3 separate parcels. We're dealing with the crosshatch parcel. This is just a more larger view of the context. It's adjacent to Sandhurst neighborhood, as well as other neighborhoods in the vicinity off Lynchburg Road. So a couple years ago, I think the applicant can verify, but we had a devastating fire which wiped out 7 or 8 of the apartment buildings, if you will. Very unfortunate. So you can see the building pads that are left in this aerial. The red parcel is in which those buildings sat. And move forward, you know, through the TRC process, we asked for certain data. So we went through and counted all the protected trees. You see all those small circles, and then grand trees as well. The proposed, we've met numerous times with the owner, the architectural team, and they're working through insurance issues, obviously. But it soon was discovered that part of the reason there was such a large loss was due to fire access and the proximity of how you lay a hose and what have you. So the city, I think, really encouraged them to rethink it. And of course, this is relatively high ground in West Ashley. And it was discovered that they could actually maybe add some density to the apartment complex. And to deal with the fire issues and access, just back up one slide, the aerial. You'll note that there's Riverfront Drive kind of just dead ends into the project. And I think during the event, fire trucks did use that area, but there was a fence. So they had to kind of go through the fence and get to the buildings, but we're going to use that opportunity to provide fire access. It's not going to be, I don't think, open per se, but we'll have Knox box or a gate or something, but that could be clarified by the applicant. But we are going to have a driveway, if you will, connect to that street. So if you look again at the aerial, you know, this is, I don't know, late 60s, 70s mat construction. You know, they didn't have all the rules we have today, and the parking's, you know, you don't see any landscape in the parking lots and what have you, but they did work around a couple of grand trees. And one of them, in order to make this work with the building reorientation and parking, it's kind of like right in the middle of a drive aisle. So we'll look at that one. There's a second one that's in a raised brick planter. That's wasn't uncommon to do back then, to cut around the base of a tree, younger tree at the time, and then put it in like a raised planter. And then you have a really nice live oak further back into the project that they're working around. So 3 buildings, plenty of parking being added, reorientation of parking where you leave the right-of-way plan south, if you will. This is just the chart of all the trees, and then he highlighted. So this is the tree, the 1 grand tree, and the second tree requiring a variance is a holly tree. I failed to get a picture of that, but it's just a multi-stem holly equaling 24 inches. But this is the 36-inch live oak. And we'll examine that, and that's in the drive aisle. So you can see how parking was just kind of, it just sat out there, had some spaces behind it, cars parked kind of haphazardly all around it, but it's being organized. The building will be perpendicular to this. This is looking into the new construction. You can see this tree has suffered significant Hugo damage, I believe. You can see the dead stubs in the crown. some more, a lot of just lateral limbs that were cut off, either damaged, and then epicormic water sprouts grew from there. A better look at it. It almost looks like the whole tree was topped at one time. And to prevent cars from backing into it, they put two little bollards there. This is the water oak. You know, when it's physically and visibly connected, we consider it sharing one root system. So 14.5, 19.5 water oak. You can see the big live oak in the background. I did not take a photo of that because they're providing, and the one side of the tree to go vertical is actually to our favor. The majority of the crown would be over the drive aisle parking. So this is just a list of all the trees that was submitted. So I want to go back to the site plan. I'll zoom in on the site plan again. But note underneath these new building footprints, you can see the old building footprints, if you will, how they were connected and they jog here and there. On the plan north side, the applicant is meeting exactly where that facade of that building. So it was legal non-conforming because plan north is zoned SR1, so we have an incompatible zoning issue and therefore a 25-foot landscape buffer, but you also have numerous easements there, so you're allowed to reduce the buffer, and the plan encroaches into that slightly. And then plan west, if you will, plan left, the same issue, some easements existing. We do have one area, if you look at that is zone DR, that orange pocket, but then you have SR1, again, abutting the apartment complex, so you have that requirement of a 25-foot buffer. And I'll zoom in on those now. So here's that close up. You're allowed to reduce it, so it's really 17.5 from the northern dash line to the lower dash line, but you can see that the building's meeting the facade of the old building. And you got sanitary sewer easements, and then this is the one against the SR1, again, easements, and it's practically meeting the facade of the old building as well. The two little images are a couple of conditions that I'm asking. The tree on the left is the tree to be preserved. You can see the brick little planter around it. And he's basically putting the curb right on that planter, but I'm asking to just reduce that radius slightly to stay further off that tree. And then the large live oak further in the project, again, we can just modify the throat to that parking pod and get the curb just that much further away from that tree. So again, just to refresh your memory on the site plan, the lower tree, live oak, is in that raised brick, and then the large one. And the holly tree, sorry, is in this large cluster of X's where the road bends. It was up against the building, and when they demolished the remnants of the building, it's still standing there, but it's a multi-stem holly. It was right up on the foundation of that building. So with that said, I think it meets it's an apartment complex built in the late 60s, 70s. I don't think it's going to be a huge detriment to the neighborhood or the district. We'll get what we can in the buffer. So staff recommends approval with the conditions to plant 94 caliber inches of native canopy trees on the project site or throughout the Palms Apartments complex. Must maintain the raised bed around the 31.5 live oak and shift the proposed curb as shown, as well as the other large oak further into the project. Must provide a landscape plan for the reduced buffer areas indicating appropriate landscape material for the space and working with the easement holders. Must use 4-foot chain link fences, tree protection barricades, and must have a certified arborist develop a tree preservation plan and implement that plan for the live oaks to be preserved.
All right, thank you. Let me just ask if anybody's present that is opposed. It's not, I didn't see any public.
There are no written comments submitted via Innovate.
You'd like to add anything to the presentation?
Matt Klein, 49 Grace Street, Charleston. No, that was a great presentation. I'm here to answer any questions. I would like to just mention, again, with the layout, you'll notice, we have a turnaround toward Plain North. That's for the fire department access, the interconnectivity with the neighbors. I would say that's gonna be open until it's proven to be detriment or something, and then they could knock spots, gain it off. But I think the intention is for it to be interconnectivity between the neighbors. It gives 2 points of another third point of access in theory to this portion of the plan. Like Eric was saying, that's the Holly, that's the T7 Holly. I don't have any opposition to staff recommendations. I think that this may end up shifting a little bit, but we've already prepared to get that taken care of. So if there's any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very much. Anybody else present that wants to speak in favor of the application? Close the application to the public and be open to the board for comment or discussion.
If we're reducing the landscape buffer, do you have plans to fence along the perimeter of the single family properties?
There is a existing 6-foot privacy fence along that property
Okay.
line. I am not sure about that property line. I walked within 10 feet of it. I couldn't see anything. It's very heavily vegetated. And I'm sure it will be supplemented, but that is a sewer easement. So we wouldn't be opposed to it, I'm sure. Another 6-foot privacy fence. I'm not sure if they exist. I know that this one exists, which was a hazard.
Any other questions of the applicant? Have a motion.
It's a shame about the fire, but I think that adding the access is a positive and will help prevent that in the future.
Yep.
I'm comfortable making a recommendation for approval with staff recommendations.
I'll second.
Actually, there's a motion for approval with staff conditions by Ms. Paula, second by Ms. Amanda. All in favor?
I'm in favor.
Aye in favor. Any opposed? None are opposed. It's approved 4-0. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, so then we will move to our next item, so item B2. It is frontage road at Forest Drive, Cainhoy Peninsula. TMS numbers are 271-00-02024, 025, 026, and 069. It is zone GP. Request a variance from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 5 grand trees. Request a special exception from section 54-327 to allow the removal of 1 grand tree. And request a variance from section 54-330 to allow a reduced impervious setback near the bases of 5 grand trees.
So I will start out that this has been modified. The applicant worked with staff, so the request is now removal of 3 grand trees and the special exception being a black cherry, wild black cherry is an F. So that's withdrawn. Then the reduced impervious. So trip out to Cainhoy. This is the application submitted by Seaman Whiteside on behalf of the owner and development team. This is their explanation to the hardship test, special exception. So 4 parcels being assembled here off the frontage road, off of the I-526 off ramp to Clements Ferry Road. The city identified this interchange a number of years back to be a node or a gathering place. So this property is zone GP, gathering place, which has a whole series of design criteria that it needs to meet. Unique in the fact that you've got high ground at Clements Ferry Road, then you've got a huge swath of marsh. And then you essentially have an island, if you will, bound by I-526. Then, of course, the creek. So it does entail portions of the high ground at Clements Ferry Road, and then a bridge would be constructed to the island. So this is the title sheet of the package. Let me just back up. Project description, if you will, it's mixed use. Gathering place has to have a couple of different land uses, so they're looking at live work units and then primarily residential. This is the surveys, the tree protected and grand tree surveys. So the grand trees, there's a couple on the bridge approach, if you will, and then obviously on the island. We walked this back in 2022. I did not revisit the trees. We will verify that, you know, since then, there hasn't been any damage, but the majority of them are live oaks, pretty resilient and tough trees in amongst pine and maritime type trees and vegetation. So you can see the peppering of the grand trees on the site. They moved the landing of the bridge. At one point, it was closer to the C grade trees, that cluster. They moved it. They're working through the Army Corps agency to get that bridge permitted. Then they have to work around another little critical area on the island itself. And then, so this is revised. So working with staff, you can see that there were two trees, two grade B trees, northeast corner, if you will, the plan that I felt could be restudied. And then the lower large grade B tree was being impacted by a pod of 6 attached units, and I felt that needed to be addressed. So that's previous plan, revised plan. You can see they rotated the buildings, lost a couple units, reorganized a few units, and still needs a little further work, but now the trees are preserved. So the D grade tree in the large building, the B grade tree in the central spine, angled parking, if you will, and then the C grade tree upper northeast corner in that pod. So a big mix, multi-unit buildings, single family detached, and then single family attached. So this was the plan submitted, showing the 5. Oh, and the red tree is the black cherry grade F. This is the revised plan. This was the original impacts. This is the revised impacts. Trees, the original 6 or so, 5, whatever. 3. Closer up. They have a little gadget that they use where you can use GPS and get to the tree. And I was with Russ Seaman that particular day. I don't know if it's time dated, but July 22nd, 2022, I guess. Yeah. So it's just their little fancy thing they use to navigate through the woods. So having studied those 3 trees and having suggested to remove units and reorient, my green will be a condition that that green area needs to be totally cordoned off with tree protection and no fill, no disturbance within that. So a little bit of shifts in sidewalks and maybe the illumination of a parallel park or two. But we'll get there with, through the TRC process. So staff recommends approval with the condition to plant 94. It's very interesting how the previous applicant had 94 as well. It's just the way, well, lucky 94. Native canopy trees on the project site must use 4-foot chain link fences. Tree protection must have a certified arborist develop a tree preservation plan and implement the plan approved by the city for all grand trees on the site and the protected trees within 25 feet of any construction. Must provide the grand trees to be preserved with greener green space as shown on the city's exhibit. Must shift the clubhouse building. I'm a little concerned. They can, in my opinion, working with the architect, the fitness area clubhouse can be kind of reorganized. You got a huge pool area, and get further off that tree in particular. The driveways, I think, will be fine with the tree preservation plan. And must provide a reforestation plan for staff approval.
All right, Eric, thank you.
So I want to go back and leave it on the revised zoomed in plan there.
Okay, is there anybody present that is opposed to the application?
And we had no
Comment?
innovative comments.
All right, so then, the applicant like to add to the presentation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, board. Malcolm Glenn, Wassima Whiteside, project manager. Here on behalf of the development team, seeking the variance, as Eric mentioned, from 54-327 and 54-330. The site is unique and exceptional. It is approximately 66 acres total between the 4 parcels, that will ultimately be combined as part of the development, but of the upland is about just under 21 acres. So that represents about 31% of the total parcel area. We have just over 1,100 protected trees that will remain in the post-developed condition, which will meet the 15 tree per acre city ordinance requirement. So the site is located north of 5.6, just east of Columbus Ferry Road. And as part of this project, we will be extending and improving the existing frontage road that is within DOT right of way and serves a Dominion gas regulating station that's a little bit closer to Columbus Ferry. But it's unique in that we have a single means of access into the property. As Eric mentioned, we are bound by I-526 and then critical and wetland areas on the remaining sides of the upland that we intend to develop. So we've had several meetings and discussions with city staff, as well as Mr. Rick Flugie, fire marshal for the project. That's been a big driver of the site layout to date, which includes kind of the alignment of the bridge, how we've shifted it away from that cluster of sea grade grand trees there, and working through what's known as an alternative materials request with Mr. Flugie for the single means of access to the site. And so one big component of that for the bridge, as well as maintaining a 20-foot wide minimum drive width to meet the International Fire Code. So we have our central spine through the site, which actually was just increased to 26 feet for the aerial apparatus vehicles to serve the 4 buildings in the middle. And then we've got 20 feet that moves around the perimeters of the site to allow for the required hose lay links for those various buildings. As you can see, this B grade live oak right here is integral and directly in the middle of what will be an approved fire apparatus road. And then this C grade live oak here, while not in the drive aisle, is directly adjacent to the 20-foot wide fire apparatus road that's needed to circumnavigate the site and provide fire protection. So that's what was a big genesis of the site layout. And as Eric mentioned, it's zone gathering place. So we have specific street types that we have to implement for this site that dictate right away width, sidewalk, building placements, et cetera. So just one other thing to note here, this is 526 on this planned south side of the site. We've got an existing 50-foot Dominion utility easement for their gas and overhead transmission electric. So in tandem with that, we have what would be a class 4 road buffer along the entire 526 right-of-way frontage. So that being adjacent to this Dominion easement could be reduced to 37.5 feet, which is what we're showing now. So in total, we have about 88 feet, linear feet from the right-of-way, to the developable portion of the site that would be left undisturbed and maintain that existing vegetation screen.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else present that would like to speak in favor of the application? Close the application to the public. If you open to the board for discussion or questions.
I probably missed it. Who did your tree ranking?
Mr. Eric Schultz on site.
Okay, so you did it. So that wasn't,
Well, I think actually I think I verified. We had, sorry,
didn't we look at this site before?
so many years ago. A different.
Yeah.
Group was looking at it, was known as the Alexander. And,
I believe there was one prior done by Natural Selection.
yeah,
That's what I was
I
thinking.
think that's what they brought that forth. I think down here it says that, but, yeah, the color codes were, on our map when we
Mhm.
walked, and then we just verified.
The edits on the, your hand-drawn edits, crossing out some of the townhome units.
Yep.
Can you point that out on the overall master plan?
Yep, so, there were 2 units here. This was a run of 6.
Okay.
So I wasn't comfortable with that. This
Mhm.
walk is gonna have to just be eliminated, or this walk, And then this is the new orientation, so this came this way. I think there were 2 additional ones here and maybe 2 here.
Okay.
So we added one here. There was, I think, a loss of 5, but a gain of 5, 4 and 1. So yeah. So this extended, so we have ratio requirements, but when there's a grand tree, you can subtract that frontage out to meet your frontage ratios, so we're good.
And then while you're standing there, one of your conditions was the clubhouse area.
Yeah.
correct?
This is a fairly large tree, and I can't exactly remember the canopy, which way it stretches, what have you, but we can elongate this building, still have a porch, move the porch here, whatever. I don't, that's,
So the little hammerhead is just for them to be able to access and load, unload, that kind of thing in front of the town homes lower, and they park across the street, I take it.
here.
Yeah.
These have drive unders.
Okay,
And then park here.
that's just extra parking.
So, and then, yeah, so there was 2 here. And there were 2, I think, detached units here. So they took the detached away and made this 4. Makes up for that. So they didn't lose any density.
So those trees just looked wider than they really were, like the person in the.
Hammers add
20 pounds or
It
whatever they
was
said.
squished.
A few years ago.
Well, I think the board always appreciates when the applicant works with staff to make improvements, so.
So to make those improvements, we got to do things to ensure the health of the tree. So therefore, give them more space, eliminate those parallel parks, move
Can you get back to your recommendations?
and then keep it at grade.
Because did that live oak have something going on at the bottom of it though, too? It kind of looked like in the picture.
There's
Maybe
some dead stubs. That might be just moisture. There's some ferns right there. I'm not sure. Resurrection fern, that particular, I remember it was hot.
And it looks a little stubbed off on that one
Yeah.
leader.
So, this is a drive aisle. They can reduce that down to 22 feet, move the sidewalk and, So conditions,
Well, we didn't have any comments. So we have this plan with staff. I make a motion, we move to approve with staff recommendations.
Right, is there a second to that motion? Mr. Kell, seconds. Motion for approval with staff conditions, all in favor?
I'm
Aye.
in favor.
Aye, in favor, any opposed? It's approved 4-0. Thank you for your time. That ends the meeting.
that does, that is it.